them in the driver's seat, not waste their time. If they're busy with something else, they're busy with something else, and we try to take the headaches away from their plate as good as we can. And yeah, our call for applications is open now, so if you run an AgTech startup, or if you know someone who could benefit from the support that we are giving, please point them our way, please talk to me, or you can also go to VC4A and look for SIAS, S-I-A-S. There's a few flyers around, we'll be distributing a few more. And yeah, thanks again, AfricArena. Improvisation, but I think it's going very, very well, and looking forward to the startups. Thank you so much.
Nice, thank you very much. Let's give him a hand. Let's give him a hand. Thank you so much, CIZ, for what you're doing. So we're going to jump straight into the agri-tech pitches. I am meant to have a clicker, which I'm looking for. I feel very powerful with that clicker when I have it. I'm just like, click next, click next. I don't know where it is. I'm going to step out and get my clicker thing before we start with the guys. Ah, I got my clicker thing. Okay, very nice. All right, so just to clear it up, I wanted to tell you this before. So everywhere I go, everyone's asking what the breakout sessions are going to be, so I'm going to break them down for you real quick, just so that you know what's going to happen next. So after this pitch session, we're going to do 4 breakout rooms. There's going to be the African Carbon Frontier, what's next? That session owner is Rasima and Malika. That's going to be breakout 1. Then there's Metrics That Matter, Measuring Climate Resilience and Adoption in Impact. That's going to be session 2, or breakout room 2. Then the third one is going to be City of Tomorrow, Innovations Driving Urban Resilience in a Changing Climate. And the last one is going to be Mobilizing Capital for African Climate Resilience Innovations. Those are 4 breakout rooms. They're the same in the order I've said them. That's room 1, room 2, room 3, and room 4, just so that you know where that is at, right? Okay. Boom, there we go. I'm actually going to move some seats so that you can be able to see their full pitch there. I really like this floor. It's very slippery. There you go. Yes. Fantastic. Ladies and gentlemen, click power. This is the jury who are nicely sat at the front. One is in shorts. That's the kind of energy we have. And voila. Let's give him a hand as he comes on stage.
You have to eat 25 apples today to get the same amount of nutrition as an apple more than 50 years ago. And that apple, 70% of its cost is logistics. Arable Grow has a vision to alleviate food insecurity. Now, what does that mean? If you think about it, it's a dual mesh problem. On the one side, you want to tackle food security through climate impact, and on the other side, you want to build a sustainable business that generates jobs and is profitable. On the screen, you can see a few of the problems that face the food security industry. And what we've done at Arable is tackled each one of these problems and built a solution efficiently that caters for it. So what's happening in the agriculture industry? In South Africa, 67% of all fresh water is contributed towards agriculture. El Nino effects are coming, arable land is declining, we're using some of the most toxic pesticides in the world. And what we've done at Arable is tackle these head on. And conventional agriculture has become more complex and more expensive to grow. The mission to the vision is to democratize vertical farming technology by building market-specific, horticulture-backed and low-capex technology. And at Arable, we also grow produce with our own technology to show that it is commercially viable and efficient. The screen shows a few of the benefits of the vertical farming technology, but I'd like to focus on 2. The first one being the fact that we can grow year-round produce using minimal resources. And secondly, being able to grow produce closer to market. 60% of nutritional value is lost within 10 days of any fresh produce from being harvested. Now, by being able to grow produce closer to market, we can ensure more nutritional produce and at a better cost due to logistics contributing 70%. We often get asked, okay, but compare arable to conventional farming and greenhousing. 4 key advantages: being closer to market, year-round growing, elimination of pesticides, and just the sheer amount of produce that we can grow per square meter by going vertical. So where it all started was the Mars prototype, the proof of concept farm. And trust me, a lot of duct tape was used. But we learned the fundamentals of vertical farming technology, which helped us design modular, low capex and efficient technology, which today is implemented in our newest farm, Luna. Our core product is a turnkey vertical farming solution designed to our clients' needs, ensuring full control. But we also understand that finances or the current design could be an issue for our clients. So we also sell the individual components inside the farm to get them going. And one of our advantages, because we've designed everything in-house, we can reduce the capex. Our grow lights cost a third of market-similar lights that you'll find. We give you full control throughout the process, raw end product out. And we've also built a state-of-the-art farm management system so that you can control and track your profits. Now, assume you had to buy one of our 12-meter Basil Purely containers. You would make your return on investment around about 2 years and have a very favorable gross margin of 84%. Currently, our key revenue source is produce sales from our 11 commercial clients to show that it is commercially viable. But the core of the company is selling the technology. Now, is there a market for this is the question we often get. If you had to consider just the USA has over 44,000 different vertical farms of different shapes and sizes. And very conservatively, we assume in Africa, arable only sells 200 units. That amounts to $21 million once-off revenue and an annual recurring revenue of over $300,000. The controlled agriculture environment in Africa is only now being seen, and arable will further be a driving factor for that market. But the key question we often get is, but why arable grow compared to the international competitors? I mean, other than the fact that we can beat them on price and our horticulture experience, is our team. We've got a highly skilled team, a passionate team that believes in the vision and that can give you one of the best designs in this industry. I did my postgraduate studies in engineering where I focused on future city design, and I saw where the agriculture industry is heading. And I knew the only way we're going to be able to solve this problem is with an exceptional team that actually believes in what they're doing. And that is the team you're seeing in front of you. A team that can give you exceptional post-sales service and can make sure that you don't lose your clients and yet your investment is protected. Be part of our mission to make vertical farming accessible. Thank you.
Questions from the judges? We have 5 minutes to do that.
Hello?
Hello? There we go. Thanks, Simon. That was a great presentation. I've just got a question about, I think one of the things that is key to vertical farming is the stability and availability of power, particularly since you in an artificial lighting, provision of water, management of the system. How does your solution deal with, let's say in South Africa, for example, we've got grid reliability issues, which is no small understatement. How have you thought about that in terms of what the technology does?
Yeah. Thanks for the question. So we've been fortunate, or maybe a little bit unfortunate, in the fact that we started the company in one of the worst load shedding periods in South Africa. So we've learned how to deal with it, and we've designed our facilities with that in mind. Our facilities have cycles where it can account for down periods, Our newest farm, Luna, is fully solar integrated at the moment, so it is possible, and even our 6 meters that we sell comes with a fully solar solution. But what we have done is made sure that the technology is capable of accounting for that energy, and what we have planned, and that's why we're raising funds for future R&D, is to do a hybrid model, but within that controlled environment of bringing the sunlight in.
My name is Imelda. Thank you so much. So your presentation was precise. Loved it. I have a question though on scale. Considering the rest of Africa, if you move out of South Africa, you'll find that most of the farmers are here, small-scale farmers who don't have necessarily the commercial angle into farming. Do you have a plan on how to scale that beyond South Africa? And if so, how will your business model kind of change to incorporate smallholder farming?
Cool. Yeah, thank you. So it's a two-way approach. On the one side, we do the technology where we do allow if a farmer just wants to start with a rack, you can just buy a grow rack, test the technology, see that it works, and then go to the full unit. So that's from a design perspective. But from a financial perspective, what we've done is we have a financing model, and we'd love to become future financiers of these things. But it's going to be with partnerships. So we've already spoken to a few partnerships where you can either get back financing through carbon credit, or it's a shared model, a blended financing. We've got a partner at the moment that invested, and the idea is that they will fund a piece of a farm and then get returns for that percentage. So that way the client wouldn't have to pay for the whole thing.
Thanks so much for the presentation. A quick question on your client base here. So a lot of them are restaurants, right?
Yeah.
Is that the perfect customer, or the majority of your customers so far? Is that where you'd like to keep going, or replacing a farmer's current processes?
Yeah, thanks. So we've got two branches. On the one side, the produce side, which we estimate will be 30% of future company. The reason we do that, it helps us design better technology, but also it proves to whoever buys our technology that it works. The clients you're seeing are high-end restaurants. They appreciate the premium quality and they're reliable. So all of them are recurring clients, not once-off orders. And we only started the technology sales engine about 2 months ago, and that's what we're going to start focusing on now.
Thank you.
Cool.
Yeah, I think building on the last two questions, what would be the next market you'd scale up to? Most of those look like Western Cape restaurants. Where is the next place you're looking to go?
So what we are planning to do is from a technology side, is focus on either farm producers, looking at especially the mushroom industry. There's a huge shortage in that. And because we've got the in-house skills, we can pivot to that and make a farm that's catered for that. And then also the retailers. We've started the conversation with them, but they'd like a slightly larger scale, and that's what we're working towards.
Thank you. Well done. All right, we've done the Q&A, and next up is making refrigeration affordable and accessible, and it's a white screen. Cool box. Yes. There it is. The internet was letting him down, but we fixed it. Here you go. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. Yeah, please beat Mama Ibadan. Mama Ibadan is a frozen food seller in the Jora Fish Market of Lagos. Mama Ibadan sent me a message about 2 months ago telling me that the best decision she actually made was buying a cool box solar freezer. That she no longer has to throw away our fish in the nearby river due to lack of power supply. In sub-Saharan Africa, we have over 600 million people that lacks access to electricity and therefore lacks access to refrigeration. As compared to America and US, and Europe rather, where you have 100% penetration in refrigeration, in sub-Saharan Africa, you'll be shocked to find out that we have only 17% penetration of refrigeration. I repeat, out of every 100, you only have 17% penetration of refrigeration. About 2.5 years ago, myself and my co-founder decided to found a company called Coolbox. We want to revolutionize the way the world experiences cooling. We want to make cooling affordable and accessible to everyone that needs it. Using the natural forces of sun and water that is extremely abundant in sub-Saharan Africa, we created a solution that is able to generate refrigeration for up to 4 days in the absence of power and even in limited sunlight. I'm sure you're wondering, how did we do this? Using the unique you're wondering, how did we do this? There must have been an error on the slide. Yeah, you're wondering, how did we do this? Using the unique properties of water, we created a solution that uses the unique properties of water to be able to store energy in the form of ice. So today we use a thermal innovation cooling, storing energy in the form of ice to be able to refrigerate for 24 hours. And the next question is, what good is the technology if no one can afford it? So we integrated in our technology a pay-as-you-go solution that ensures that every individual and every store is able to own the Coolbox solar freezer for as low as $10. They can pay in monthly, weekly, or daily installments for the Coolbox solar solution. And of course, our product is not only effective, it's also extremely environmentally friendly. Today, we are on track of saving 4 times what a country like Switzerland saved in GHG emissions over the next 3 years. Our traction. Coolbox today is sold in over 23 countries. In the last 3 years, we've sold over 5,500 units. Our business model is purely B2B. We sell to small businesses that require refrigeration for income generation. Our margins are between 55% to 65%. And I'm also excited to tell you that we've been growing by 3x revenue year on year. Another amazing fact is our units, in terms of default rate, is as low as 2.8% in terms of default rate of our units. These are all our partners. As you can see, the big brands, Coca-Cola, most importantly, and Orange in French West Africa, that we just signed recently. And of course, I'm also pleased to announce that we also recently got a French funding of 1.5 million euros to set up a 70,000 unit capacity pay-as-you-go plant in Nigeria, pay-as-you-go refrigerator plant in Nigeria. And I'm also happy to tell you that the plant is actually located 3 kilometers away from the biggest appliance electronics store in West Africa, which is called the Alaba Market. This is the amazing team responsible for all you're seeing. And today, our ask is $34 million basically for one regional expansion and of course for inventory build. Today, we are currently backed by Acumen. We are backed by Shell Foundation. We are also backed by Arua Capital and PG Capital. And also special thanks to SAIS program. They've been very supportive in all this. And I will end with this picture. This is one of my favorite pictures, or our favorite pictures. This describes who we are when we see new technology. You can see different emotions. That's Mama Ibadan, seated with the paper in her hand. That's our first customer. And of course, you can see the other lady with excitement and the other lady with doubts. Can this really work? Can you tell me that you're going to make freezing through the sun? Today, I'm happy to tell you that we have over 150 units in this particular market today. Please join me as we refrigerate and empower 135,000 women across the globe in the next 3 years. Thank you very much.
Thanks so much for that great presentation. I'm curious in how you're thinking about using the different types of financing, so the equity, debt, and grant, what the different use cases for those would be.
Great. Equity majorly to activate the debt, because once we have equity, then we're able to access debt. So it's a $6 million in equity funding. And then we have a percentage as well for grant funding. As you saw, we just secured $1.5 million in grant funding from the French government. We also have another $1.5 million also in the basket. We're concluding on due diligence with another funder. So basically, the debt portion is basically to leverage on our equity, basically. Yeah. And it's a 30% 70 ratio, 30-70 ratio.
So I like the traction. I think it's amazing what you've achieved, and definitely there's opportunity for pay as you go. My question though is, I have a doubt on, we've seen a lot of Africans, I'll talk about my village, people get into more debt because of pay as you go. They are not able to pay, and then all these companies come and take the little thing that they have. So I would be curious to know how you're mitigating that, so we are not helping and putting people into more debt.
Thank you very much. We hear that from a lot of investors, actually. So I'm happy to tell you that we don't want to sell to everybody. We're not even selling to households. I mean, for now, we do have a lot of households interested in the business. However, our focus is small businesses that require refrigeration for income generation. I mean, currently, we don't really see any justification to buy a product of $1,500 just to keep it at home, if you know what I mean. So basically, it's for income generation, and obviously there's a whole lot that goes behind it. We have what we call the KYC. We need to know your story, we know where you are, and we need to have an idea of how much, because it needs to be sustainable. It's a sustainable business we're trying to run, even though we eventually know that it's an impact. Thank you. I was going to share that with you, but because of time.
Perfect.
Question?
One more? Perfect. Thanks so much for the presentation, and congrats on what you've built so far.
Thank you.
I have a question around distribution. So how have you done it so far? How do the partnerships work? And how do you think about that model in different countries? Can you roll it out? Do you need to change something?
Thank you very much. So currently, we distribute through partners. We're vertically integrated. That means we design, we manufacture, and of course we get to market, but through distributors. So our distributors are like stores, and what they do basically is they earn commissions on every unit being sold. As you can see, there was a partner on the screen, which is Orange. We recently just signed Orange. Orange is actually is a mobile network in French-speaking Africa, and they've got stores in about 17 different countries. So the idea is to work with them in their stores, where they earn commissions on every unit that's been sold in each of those stores. So that's our model so far. We call it B2B dealership model.
Thank you very, very much. Let's give him a hand. That was a very unexpected pitch. Well done. Can I make it? Thank you very much. The fridge energy, I really like that. Our next. CBEX, there you go. And you're ready. There you are. Voila. Here's your clicker thing, and here is your microphone. Let's give a hand as she comes on stage.
It's working? Yeah. Hello, everyone. My name is Emira Shanour. I'm co-founder and CEO of CBEX. And today, I'll take you in a journey that intersects technology, sustainability, and agriculture. Climate change becomes an evidence, and action becomes a necessity, not an option. Because farmers, at the heart of the crisis, are losing in terms of profitability. Irrigation inefficiency alone, it's costing them up to 50% of their profit. So we see the urgency. That's why at CBEX, our mission is to empower farmers. Our mission is to empower farmers with valuable irrigation recommendations that make difference in their business. What make us stand out, actually, we are specialized in irrigation, and we offer an AI-based solution that is able to increase yield, to protect the soil, and to efficiently use resources without the need of hardware. So how are we doing this? Picture that. Farmers need to draw their field to specify their crop, and our AI models will be fueled with ultra-local data from the field. We do have like worldwide soil database, local soil databases, crop databases that span over 940 crop varieties. We use climate data, we use satellite images, and we do use sensors data from our stations or from partner platforms. But notice that sensors data that we use is only for AI training to avoid any extra fees for farmers. So what we deliver to farmers is actually not only insights, but also irrigation recommendations. And we go beyond this by simulating actually the evolution of the available water in the soil about like 14 days ago. And we actually reach also farmers with no connectivity through SMS by onboarding them through the platform. So we are bridging the gap between the very sophisticated solution that based in hardware and the low-tech solution based in USSD. Our offer extends also to satellite images, so we offer them access to up to high-resolution vegetation indices that gives insights on the crop yield and the crop health. In a market where precision agriculture could lift yield by 70%, the opportunity is huge. Precision irrigation alone actually represents a market of $35 billion, and we are focusing on Europe, Middle East, and Africa that represents $10 billion. So our go-to-market strategy stands on actually partnering with top agri-tech providers, turning competitors into partners. And we do collaborate with agri-buyers or industrial leaders in agri-value chain digitization approach. So we are actually pioneering change. We also partner with financial institutions and banks. By aggregating the data, we give them the ability to make more robust credit scoring modeling. So we are leveraging the whole ecosystem. We have been also actually generating leads across the countries. And we have been successful to generate over 90,000 euro in terms of revenue, totaling more than 350 paid customers since we've launched in January 2023. So we are always in the move at CBEX. We've been partnering recently with Bayer to extend our activity in France, Italy, Spain, and South Africa. We've turned more competitors into partners in terms of integration, and thanks to our contract, it's a revenue sharing contract with the National Chamber of Agriculture in France, we've been able to sell through 94 chambers in France and potentially reach 60,000 pet customers over the forthcoming years. So by leveraging our AI solution, we have been able to increase yield by 25%, and the return on investment for farmers is 1x plus per hectare from the first year using our solution. As we are actually in the precipice of scaling, we ask you to join our journey. We're raising funds, and we secured the third of it. And we are aiming to reach 22 million euro by 2027, totaling more than 130,000 farmers onboarded on the platform. Our journey is fueled by a team of 3 co-founders with over 40 years of experience, all combined in IT, AI, agri-value chain digitization, and digital transformation. And we do have a team in Tunisia, skilled in engineering, agronomy, and project management. I will end with this slide. We do have one major competitor that we do watch, who is Saplant, who have been pivoted recently in 2022, a year after us in sensorless solution, but they spent 7 years to reach to that. We spent only 2 years, and they raised already 27 million euro to scale the sensorless solution among smallholder farmers, but we're raising 1 million euro to scale our sensorless solution for every farmer in Europe, Middle East, and Africa. So, dear investors, maybe you missed actually the opportunity to invest in Saplant, but your journey with CBEX just started. Thank you.
Every time. He panics every time. He's like, this is a good slide to finish on. Look at that. She's just tearing them up. Do you have any questions, judges?
Yeah. Thanks, Amir, and congrats on what looks like some good traction, given how young the company is. I was just wondering, given your focus on 3 or 4 different markets or regions, let's say, the kind of profile of your customers is quite different across those different markets. How's your product tailored for that? How do you manage that go-to-market strategy, given that Africa's dominated by a smallholder base? It's a kind of a different need here versus somewhere like the Middle East or Europe.
Yeah. So, like actually, when we started in Tunisia. So, I mean, we have been learning a lot from the Tunisia as an African market, and also have been also the other African markets. But starting points from France, it was really crucial, because what missed when we started it was the data. But when we went to France, it was able for us to access exclusively like the most agronomic database in terms of crop and soils, and we have been able to train our AI models in sensorless. So, been validating the accuracy through that. What we are dealing with, like, I mean, yes, there is a big contrast between the two markets, but I can tell you that today in our platform, which you have like all the profiles in terms of smallholder farmers, medium farmers, and the big farms. What differentiates only the go-to-market strategy? Because I mean, in France, we go like the market is really educated. We go through massive distribution channels like cooperative, like the Chamber of Agriculture, etc. But in the African markets, we go through agri-value chain, approach through the big buyers, the big industrials, and also through banks and financial institutions. And we do, our business model is very, very inclusive in terms of prices. That's why today we do have the 3 profiles.
Thanks so much for the presentation.
Welcome.
I have a question on the product roadmap. So at the moment, you can use satellite imagery to detect irrigation issues, which is a very powerful first use case. But what can you build on top using only satellite imagery? Do you expect to run into maybe a roadblock where you have to use physical sensors, pest and disease topics, and other things that are important to farmers beyond irrigation?
Very good question. So our choice, it was to be specialized in irrigation, because irrigation today is not only about just giving recommendations to farmers, it's about also adaptability and how we're gonna be able to build more model to be adaptable to climate change and to make an efficient use of the available water, and not just given the right amount of water without that the farmer could be actually lose in terms of profitability. So in terms if more models in terms of crop health and crop nutriments, etc. Today we're in discussion with some partners in that. We don't want to reinvent the wheel, because there are some multiple other startups that have been started with this, and they master this, and we think that join our efforts is better, and bundle like we did with, for example, Climate Field View, Bayer, the tool with Bayer. We've been integrating this, and we are bundling now and selling both solutions together.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And so nice. That final slide was amazing. We just destroyed them. No. What is happening? No. What?
Yeah, the clicker is not working.
I think my clicker has lost its mind. I apologize for... Ha! Have we seen this slide before? I don't feel like we have. Yes. No. 1 second. Let's have this awkward silence as I run out and figure out what's happening. Awkward silent moment. Talk to a neighbor. All right. Awkward silence moment is over. We have fixed the situation. So, as I was saying, her final slide was so good. Nope. This guy's lost his mind. So, Nate, do you mind doing it for me over there? I'm jumping 50 slides when I click on this guy. Yeah, you ready? I'm going to try and make sure you don't present somebody else's slides. That could be awkward.
I think everyone's already seen my slides, so I think we're good to go.
Just give it a second. Let me make sure it's right. I don't want your pitch to go down. I saw you wore the nice linen shirt. You got the shoes to match. I see it, the belt situation. I know you're set up. I don't want to fail you. So let me try to see if this works.
I work with none of these people.
I'm trying to shine and it's taking away my shine. Are we good? Keep going.
Let's give it a go.
Yeah. Keep going. So this is school box, so just...
How's everyone enjoying Nairobi? It's not a bad city, is it? It's a very good city. Are you from Nairobi? Are you just saying that? Yeah.
100% from Nairobi, because you could tell. First time? Have you been here before?
I live here.
You live here. There you go.
Yeah.
So he speaks like it's first time. No.
No,
How long
no.
have you lived?
Most of my life.
Nice.
Yeah.
See?
Also not my company, but looks very, very high tech.
Nice.
Don't know what to do. Pass the time. Stand up.
Are you good at comedy?
Huh?
Are you good at comedy?
I'm not very good at comedy.
Do you
No.
want to try one? Do you have one?
I think so, but my fiance says that I'm not,
Yeah.
and I tend to value her opinion with higher regard than my own.
This
so,
is wise. This is truly.
Yeah.
I have one joke for you, though.
Okay.
Let's see if you can figure it out. Let me see how many of you can. Ah, wait. I've gotten a wave. Wave is good.
Are we good
news.
now?
I got a wave. Yes.
What I'm about to present has nothing to do with drones.
Do you want us to switch so we have the drone guy, then we have you after?
I'd rather go now. I've got a meeting.
He's got a meeting, so let's rush him so that we don't. Yeah, good. I see a thumbs
Are we
up.
good?
You want to click next? So
Okay.
we do. I don't have a. Shall I try the clicker thing? See if it works. Thank you.
Shall I take that?
Yes.
Also not me.
Other side.
Other way?
Yes, other way.
Give that a go. Back to drones. Also not me.
Yeah, keep going.
There we
We should
go.
find
No.
you after.
Oh, God. Dear. That is one of our slides.
Okay, good. So we are somewhere
one
close.
of the middle ones.
As well. We are succeeding. Progress. Okay. Do you want to go back and see if it's one of us that keep going
I can
back?
go to the left. We're back to satellites.
Yes. Okay. Go forward and then go forward
Forwards.
again.
Also, another one of our slides.
Oh my God.
Jesus Christ.
Like, this is a hit or miss situation. What do we have?
Not one of our slides. Oh, another one of our slides. I don't know. Do you want to just talk?
Do you mind as I figure out? Well, yeah, I'm so sorry about
can
this.
Anyone? I'm not techie. I'm not into drones or satellites.
Not you.
Sorry, guys.
You know what? We're using Canva, and when the internet messes up, it just falls apart. So,
Oh, jeez. Any word?
that's me. I'm not in his slide. Yeah, just, you know what? Talk it through. We'll figure out, just talk it through.
Sorry, guys.
I'm so sorry about that. My fault. Talk it through.
Let me give it a go. If the techies could try something. But anyway, I'm going to start with a story because I'm up here and I have no slides. My story starts about 5 years ago. I was cycling to work in Nairobi. All of a sudden, a car comes past me, and out of the window comes a yogurt container, partially eaten, and it hits me straight in the chest. The thing explodes. Yogurt absolutely everywhere. Now, as you can imagine, I'll put it politely, I was absolutely furious. Surely that driver could have put that yogurt container somewhere else. God, this is difficult. This is difficult. Where would you put your litter? In the bin, the trash can if you're American. I'm the same. That makes us decent, respectable people, right? And that driver should have done the same. But then what? Where does that litter go? Well, I start doing some research and I found out in nations like mine, 4% of waste is recycled, the rest of it ends up here. 7th time lucky. Why is that important though? Because, you know, it's in the dump, it's out of sight, out of mind, end of story. Surely that's fine, but no, I carry on researching and it turns out that when we throw organic waste into the landfill, it breaks down to form methane, greenhouse gases. In fact, 10% of all greenhouse gas comes from the waste that we throw in the bin. Surely there could be a better solution to the waste that we're throwing in the bin. And that's when I met this guy, Sune Mushendwa. And he introduced me to these guys. Now, a few of you are familiar with these things. They're black soldier fly. I can see a few confused looks thinking, you know, what on earth are they ever going to solve? Well, they start their life like this. Sune is an architect and an engineer by profession, and through something as beautifully simple as a fly, he had found a profitable mechanism of converting waste, which would otherwise go into landfill, into protein for animal feed and fertilizer. So Sune and I, we teamed up, we formalized his business, and we commercialized his business model. We started building teams. You guys are very familiar with the team because this slide's been on the thing about 17 times, but those teams are great. They implement his business model, and then we engage with experts, scientists, entomologists, engineers who really refined Sune's model and allowed us to roll it out and expand. And so that's what we've been doing. This is a Chanzi facility. It costs $300,000 to build, and it'll process 25 metric tons of waste a day, converting that into revenue through insect protein and fertilizer at about a 57% gross margin. But what next? We know our business model is pretty good. We're pretty proud of it. It's doing some fantastic things, but we know it's not perfect. Anyone that knows anything about nascent industries like ours will know just how many mistakes we've had to make to get to where we're at. And so what we're really looking for is investors who are willing to join us on that journey. Our management systems are not quite good enough. Our engineering department still need to invest in our drying systems, and our R&D is there to improve food conversion ratios. Those slides are mixed around, and this is where we're at right now, but we're looking for investors who are not comfortable with leaving things as they are. We're looking for investors who are willing to help us roll out, because our long-term goal is 47 Chanzi facilities throughout sub-Saharan Africa. 10,000 jobs, 2,000 metric tons of waste every single day. Now, I can see people trying to quantify 2,000 metric tons of waste. It's very difficult, so let me put it this way. If you've got 2,000 tons of waste and put it in wheelbarrows and line those wheelbarrows back to back, you'd stretch over 80 kilometers. That's here to Naivasha for our Kenyan people. It's a lot of waste, and it comes with a carbon offset of 250,000 metric tons a year. That is our vision, that is our dream. And I'm going to leave you with this. They say that some of the best ideas are often the most simple. I genuinely believe that Sune's idea is beautiful in its simplicity. It's a profitable way of tackling my waste problem, and it's something that we want to scale. Perhaps it's time we let this idea fly. Thank you very much. Sorry.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah. So how do you make money? What are you selling?
We're selling, yeah, good question. It's not a great pitch if I didn't explain that. We sell insects as an animal feed. So we replace soya. We're selling what you see on the screen here. We replace soya, we replace fish meal, and we sell that for a profit. The only byproduct is what comes out the rear end of the insect, and that's the manure that we sell as a biofertilizer.
Just also following on that, what do you see as the major value chains that this feed can feed into in Africa, or the type of livestock that you guys are particularly targeting?
Fish, chicken, pigs. They're primarily who we sell to. Not them directly, the people that feed them. And fish, feed mills, farmers, that sort of thing.
Thanks for the pitch and good improv. I have a question about the process before the flies. So
okay.
How are you organizing collection of waste? Are you doing that?
Yeah.
Are you close enough to the source?
Very good question. And that was our biggest bottleneck for a while. Over the last 5 years, we've developed this. We actually own a waste management company. They handle 100% of waste and give 20% of it, the food waste, to us. That is typically the most difficult cohort of waste to deal with, so we solve that problem for them, and then they recycle the rest. Our long-term goal as a company is to take 90% of waste and avoid it going to landfill. So we very much work in tandem with waste management companies in every area that we operate.
Thank you.
Thanks. Could you talk a little bit more about if there's any further R&D that you need to invest in, some future sort of development of the product?
Good question. In terms of the product, we're selling 2 products right now, and we're not deviating from that. We sell the insects and we sell the insect manure. We're keeping it very simple. We're not diversifying intentionally. Once we've raised our Series A, we will start looking at value addition. And there's a long list of things that we could do to make our bottom line a little bit more attractive. Extracting oils, extracting chitin, which are biopesticides, bioplastics, carbon credits, selling waste management as a service. There are so many other avenues that this business can go into, but like I said, our business model is not perfect selling the two products that we're doing. So let us produce as many insects as we physically can, and then we'll start tackling those issues.
Let's give him a hand. I think he killed it out here, considering his speech hadn't refused to fly at the beginning. Very well done. Fantastic. Very, very cool. And now we've got SKP up next. SKP up next. SKP? Yes, very nice. Here's your... I hope you do not have the same issues he did.
Is it this side, right?
It is that side. But at this point, yeah, there you go.
Right.
This is the drone, gentlemen, ladies and gentlemen.
Right. Hello. A chief economist from Google once said the following: the ability to take data, to be able to understand it, to analyze it, to extract value from it, to make it visible, and to communicate it will become a very important thing in the next decade. Well, this is so true that if you look at today's... slide is gone. Okay. My slide is gone, but it's okay. So what we see today is that there's a lot of problems in the data gathering today, in the industry of today. First, a lot of decisions are being made subjectively, right, due to poor availability of data. Also, even when the data is there, it is not transparent. A lot of transparency, lack of transparency. Reports are being made based on wrong reporting, wrong data. And above all, it takes a lot of time to actually gather data today. What we do, our solution is to actually, we are specialized in integrating geospatial service and custom app development with the goal of revolutionizing agriculture by constantly integrating digital solutions for precise decision making. Our data, our solution will make farm visualization possible, to be possible to upload documentation, to enable traceability and sustainability. Diving deep into our services, we start with geospatial data collection and analysis. With that, by using drones or planes or satellite. In fact, we use a lot of time drones because we are working with high resolution images. Then we will do GIS system integration, which means that we will provide the topography of the actual map, digital terrain models, surface models. We will digitize all infrastructure in the farm and make it possible for the farmer to access the data on a platform through our custom app development. We support our farmers and our clients to daily manage their data, and we also provide them with a business intelligence dashboard that they can access constantly. The market is actually very big. We are in the West African region, and we are looking at 17 different countries. We believe that if we target 1 million smallholder farmers and 10,000 industrial farmers, we are actually chasing 310 million USD. This is what we are actually after. Next is our business model is very straightforward. When you look at the geospatial data collection and analysis, this year, as we speak, we are heading towards 1.3 million USD with that services. Secondly, when it comes to the custom app development, we are again this year heading towards almost 300,000 USD. And then the GIS system integration, still for this year, we are heading towards 258,000 USD this year. Our traction, yes, we have existed for the last 5 years. And I must admit, it's the first time I'm pitching because we have never had a need for external investors. And for these 5 years, we are present in Ghana, Cote d'Ivoire, and Senegal. We have already achieved 100,000 hectares of farmland and digitization in 10 different countries in the West Africa. We have reached out to many smallholder farmers, and together with these services, we've already achieved more than $1 million USD through the service we supply. Our finances, looking at, though agriculture is our primary sector, our service is also used in different sectors such as health, forestry, and energy sector, making it possible to actually contributing heavily in our revenue. With the investment that we are trying to raise, we believe that if we achieve that in the next 2 years to come, we will be more than 10 million. The team is myself, after spending more than 15 years in Europe, managing different small startups, I came down to Ghana to join a team of experts to raise and to steer this new business we are facing. Some of the customers who have already trusted our services and continuously working with us can be seen as follows. What we are asking is $1 million USD in order to manage cash flow for the next 2 years. We believe that with this, we are going to extremely scale. This is the end of my presentation.
Well done. Right on time before the rain beats the metal roof. Judges.
Thanks so much for the presentation. I have a question around economics and margin. So if you're collecting data through drones or aeroplanes, so if you're collecting imagery through drones, you need a pilot, you need to organize. So how have you priced the product? How much margin do you have?
Okay. So, very good question. Basically, all depends on the size of land we have to capture. We will charge per the data capture and the data processes. So each activity will come into two, and we will also charge for storing the data as long as it takes per year. So our margin is approximately 60%. We believe to be in a niche so far. Though we are seen as a drone company, we actually just use drone as a vehicle to capture data. So the data is what we supply, and we have margin in that.
Okay, thank you. Maybe a quick follow-up.
Yes.
So if the cost is much lower per hectare for large farms, does that mean this only makes sense for large commercial farms? Or does it also work for smallholder?
Did you hear the question?
Yes, I heard the question very well. Thank you for the question. I was actually expecting this question because indeed, for large industrial farms, it makes perfect sense and we make easily margin. We have struggled with getting small farm holders. What we have done is working with the group associations and donors in order to extend our services to those small farm holders.
Let's give him a hand, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much, SKT. Well done. Okay. This is definitely the louder mic. This is not a problem we've ever had before. The roof is making too much noise. Okay, so I think you've been preparing for this moment for a while. When God decides He's going to give you trouble. Next button is this is next. This is behind. This is forward.
Thank you. Thank you, and really glad I could bring the rain to you. So I'm going to talk a bit louder so we can try and get into it. As a wildlife veterinarian, I've had the privilege with working with lots of iconic wildlife species. It's been absolutely fantastic working with conservationists, farmers. But what we saw was that we are busy consuming our biodiversity. And that, of course, is not good because, hey, in Africa we need it for tourism, but we also need it for carbon sequestration. So one of the biggest problems is intensive livestock production. So intensive livestock production uses a lot of land. South Africa, 40% of all the maize produced goes to animal fodder. We already plowed up so much that we're into drought areas. Livestock produce more greenhouse gases than all the transport in the world put together. And it takes about 2 tons of water in order to produce a steak. So there's a lot of subsidy that is with the normal livestock production. What's the solution? Well, cell lines from cultivated meat. So in muscles, we have stem cells. So if we extract these stem cells, they can keep multiplying. So very much like a brewery. So you put these cells in a vat and they keep multiplying. It's natural. We have an overproduction of stem cells, so we're making use of this natural ability to produce more meat with the same amount of cattle. So, what's our traction? We have a cell bank with over 700 cell cultures that we've collected from 10 different species. We produced our first chicken hybrid nugget. So we added chicken cells to mycelia, and we were in the X Prize Feed the Next Billion, the only team from the continent of Africa. So our business model changed slightly recently, well, fairly dramatically. We decided to become a B2B company because we don't have the funds to build these massive plants. So for instance, already $2 billion have been put into plants in the US, in the Netherlands, in Singapore. So, but they're working mostly on chicken, pigs, and beef. So we think there's going to be a demand for different species going forward. And we want to then produce these cell lines and then license these cell lines. At the same time, fat is an ingredient. So for the plant-based companies who produce plant burgers, we can add this fat to it. And of course, taste comes majority from fat. So the market size, of course, the meat export opportunity is gigantic. If we look at the size of the meat market out there, if we look at the size of the venison market, and South Africa recently stopped its export because of foot and mouth disease, but by having cultivated meat, we feel we can penetrate this market because you can test it with regulatory issues. So we think we can get to 5% in the next 20 years. But our specific B2B model is then looking at the 180 cultivated meat companies out there and thousands of plant-based companies out there to get our product to them. We've got 3 competitors. They are selling cell cultures for about $500 a vial. And we think that, no, we don't want to do that. Why? Because you're giving away your IP. We want to have the cell lines developed for all these different species and be able to then license it out. So we've got a great team that we've put together, from advisors to cell culture experts to wildlife experts, putting this all together, and we have current investors, and from Canada, the US, Singapore, Paris, and of course South Africa, Holocene. They've been helping us tremendously, and Josh is here somewhere in the audience. Sorry, you have to see that again. One of the other things we did was, okay, if we're not scaling down, but if we're doing this at an outscale, what can we use to put anywhere, to put in an urban area, to put in a rural area? We can have these clean rooms. So we got Zebra 1 and Zebra 2, as you can see. That's the inside on the right of Zebra 1, sorry. And the idea is going forward, and we missed the slide there, and that's of course covered, but how do you get small-scale farmers to be able to aggregate and be able to then produce hybrid products? We're taking them, mixing it in with the hybrid products so that you get good nutrition. We need good animal nutrition, and we get that obviously, or animal protein, we get that from real meat. We're talking about real meat here. So this is our ask, 475, to be able to take us for the next year and a half going forward and develop these cell lines. Thanks very much.
Well done. He spoke over the rain, which is hard considering it's raining. Do you want to have questions for him?
Yeah, I'll go. Thanks, Paul. Looks really, really interesting. 2 questions. The one is your market primarily an export market? And if so, how is that linked to offsetting the impact of cultivating for the local, the climate impact, let's say, for cultivating the local market? And then secondly, I'm interested to know how that chicken nugget tasted.
Very mycelia-like. But hey, it had all the nutrition. So back to the first question. That's a very good question. So the idea is, how do we get return on investment as soon as possible by licensing these cell lines out? But as I mentioned there, you've got this production, for instance, of the fat for these plant-based materials. So we're using South African animals, and we think that the next step will be, once this is worked out properly, to really go and develop more of these containers which have been converted and can be put anywhere. And that hence linking with your plant, your small-scale farmers, who you can aggregate and then get a good product out of. So it is the next step. So we've listened to you financial Okies to say, hey, you know, you guys have got to get a return on investment, you've got to sell something. We could sell some of our cell cultures, which is over 700 of them. We could get 350,000 K, but we want to keep them. So all your companies, those 180, they're not selling cell lines. They might be selling cell cultures, but not cell lines, because that's the holy grail. That's going to make the companies rich.
Wow, intensive. Any other questions? Good? Yeah?
Thanks for the presentation. I have a question on the technology. So as you mentioned, there's a lot of investment going into different platforms around the world who use slightly different technology. Is yours fundamentally different and gives you an advantage either in, let's say, speed of production or cost, where you can compete versus a US competitor, or is it more about how you're doing?
Yeah, very good question. So obviously we intend to stay ahead of the curve. That's number one. Number two, we intend to leapfrog. And in order to leapfrog, you've got to be scanning these guys. What are they doing? What technologies are you doing? So we've got a very good idea of some of the different companies like Upside Food. Upside Food just opened a plant costing $50 million US. They raised another $400 million recently. The big meat packers like JBS of Brazil and Tyson and Cargill, they have all invested in cultivated meat. So they see where this is going. And obviously what we want to do is get in on the ground floor and use see what technologies are being used and tweak it for our specific cell lines. Because yes, you have to tweak it for specific cell lines.
Thank you very much, Dr. Bartels. Let's give him a hand, ladies and gentlemen. Very, very nice. Wild bio. It's such a good presentation. Well done. All right. You have my clicker, good sir, and mine. Thank you so much. Thank you. And Chanzi. No. No. I keep going? Ah, yes, he flew. This is what it is. Now it works. Flawlessly even. With expansion and everything. And chickens. And thank yous. Aha! Yes. There you go. He has the t-shirt to boot. Let's clap for him as he comes on stage. This is yours, and this is yours. That's it.
Okay, thank you very much. Let me go on the stage. So my name is Lucas from Mavuno Technologies, and this here is Mr. James. It's a smallholder farmer from Africa, from Tanzania, and he's one of our customers. Yeah, and Mr. James and also millions of other smallholder farmers from Africa, they have multiple problems which are leading to low income. One problem is they have low harvest yields, and that's because they have no access to farm inputs. Also further, they have high risk because they don't have the knowledge, they don't know how to use the right farm inputs at the right time. And last but not least, they have low prices because they don't have a market access. So all these problems are leading to low income. And we as Mavuno Technologies, we are dealing with cashew nut farmers. And those cashew nut farmers, actually, they have one big problem. There's one disease, it's called powdery mildew, which is responsible for more than 60% of crop losses. And that's a shame because it's easy to treat with sulfur powder. And actually that's what we are doing. So we are providing the farmers with sulfur powder, and we also make sure that we spray the sulfur powder at the right time on their farm. So we make sure that it's really also delivered on the field. And we give them the access to finance because they don't have the money, and so that they don't have to pay all at once, so they pay slowly every month. So that's the financing package included. So we at the moment we charge $30 per acre, 30 euro per acre. So we have a very slow margin at the moment, it's only 16%. We want to increase this in future by, so we want to transition to a market platform where we can also offer this, also the business to third-party providers that they can actually sell their farm inputs to our farmers. Further, we want to enter more in the mobile network framework, and we want to work further with agents. We already started this year to use USSD for onboarding and subscription and mobile payments. And last but not least, we improved the repayment rates by mitigating risks. So we are becoming more selective when it's about selecting the right farmers. So how do we do all this? So we are using satellite imagery and machine learning models. We can detect the crops from space, and we can predict the biomass and also predict the harvest yield, and we can calculate the farm input demands, so we can prevent farmers from oversubscribing. When a farmer says he needs this and this amount, we say, wait, we know what you need, and we spray it on your farm. And further, we have an app which we use for our operators, so those people who they go on the fields and they spray, so to make sure that they spray it at the right time and in the right amount on the right spot. So we started in Tanzania, actually in the south of Tanzania, because there are 500,000 cashew nut farmers, so there's a really huge potential only in this market, just there where we are. And it's a very important cash group for the whole region here in East Africa. But in future, we want to also go in other African countries and also in other crop types. So we start, there are also other companies dealing with satellite data, but we have, so we are the only ones who have a specific offer for cashew nut farmers. So in the last 2 years, we reached 10,000 farmers. So there is a huge potential, as we see. And in the next 2 years, we want to reach to 50,000 cashew nut farmers. And we want to do feasibility studies in Ghana, Kenya, and Uganda for cashew and coffee. So this is our team. Actually, we are 3 brothers as founders. So my older brother Johannes, he has a background in the management consultant. My younger brother Jacob, he's a data scientist, and me, I'm in Tanzania for more than 9 years now. And I've already built a startup with more than 50 people before. So I'm responsible for the operations on the ground. Thank you very much.
Nice. That was that cool slide that we'd seen earlier. Questions, judges?
Thanks so much for the presentation. I'm just curious, it seems like the cooperative unions played a big role in scaling in Tanzania. What are the other type of partnerships you're considering to scale up the offering?
So we work with cooperative unions, as you said, and mostly with the government. Also the government now in Tanzania, they are also digitizing farmers. So this year they digitized more than 200,000 cashew nut farmers already. So we have all these farm polygons, which we can already use for our business. But we also start cooperating with operators. They want to do the transition to with off-takers. So they want to have a transition in the organic farming market. So they need organic products, and there we are needed because it's not easy to access farmers and to make them become organic farmers.
Thanks. You had a slide earlier on about unlocking some additional margin on your revenues. Can you just tell us a little bit more about how you plan to do that?
I think this one here. So why? So we have a low margin because we do at the moment, we do everything ourselves. So we purchase the farm inputs and we sell the farm inputs, right? So this is what we want to outsource in future. So when we are big enough, then it's also, then it's a good offering for other products to us. And this is what we already started now with companies. They're interested. They sell this as kind of organic farm products like efficient microorganisms. This can increase also the soil carbon, which is very interesting. Also today, for example, we are talking about climate change a lot, right? And actually our model has a huge impact on the climate change because we can increase the soil carbon, we can measure the biomass, so we know exactly how much the farmers are increasing. So we want also to open the market in future for the voluntary carbon market. But here, as you can see, so for your question, yeah, we want to increase the margin because we don't need so much working capital anymore in future when we don't need to purchase this farm inputs ourselves.
Well done. Let's give him a hand, ladies and gentlemen.
Okay, thank you very much.
Very, very cool. I will take this and I will take this. We are done for the session, the pitch sessions, and we're going to go into breakout rooms. Who's a September baby? Born in September like me? 1, 2. We are the coolest people in the room, apparently. Someone says we are the nicest. We're very good with money. We're very good with relationships. We're trustworthy, and we are always, almost always on time. And my mom just texted me and said she cannot remember the last time it rained in September. Climate change is real. I also don't remember the last time it rained in September. We're not supposed to have this. The breakout rooms are 4. I will tell you what it is, each and every one of them. Then go talk to him, because the 2 of us are cool. Session 1 is, it's okay. The African Carbon Frontier, what's next? That's in breakout room 1. You're going to go out the door, turn left, through the rain, into the tent. No, they are volunteers with umbrellas. They'll sort you out. Then there's metrics that matter, measuring climate resilience and adaptation impact. Breakout room 2 is this way. Then we're going to have City of Tomorrow Innovations Driving Urban Resilience in a Changing Climate. Breakout room 3, also in that general direction. And then in breakout room 4, Mobilizing Capital for African Climate Resilience Innovation. That's straight behind you over there. There will be folks with umbrellas walking you through into all of those. Attempt not to run through them. If you slide and get hurt, we are not liable. You're not young people. But have a nice time, and we'll see you after the breakout sessions are over. Good afternoon, everyone. If you are going to breakout room 1, because of the rain, it's unusable. So you're just going to do it at the front here in this room. The carbon conversation, tent 1 is unusable. So just pull up some chairs up here in front and scream at each other, and we will hear you. the round table over here. So not on the day, you don't have to do on this, just over here. So we can put... this down here. Yeah, you can do the panelists on stage, and then we can have people put seats here, or we can all sit everyone around on the seats down here. It's nice? Yeah? Do you want to sit down here? It's more intimate, maybe? Then we just pull seats in? Okay. So let's have everyone over here. Let's pull some seats in from the crowd.
Leads the engineering design of the machines, tailoring it to its deployment in Kenya. Super cool. Good to have you, Duncan. Next, we have Ash Berman, manager at Climate Action Platform for Africa, that is CAP-A, where he leads CAP-A's carbon markets team, connecting the dots between innovators, policymakers, operators, and philanthropists to catalyze the growth of high-integrity carbon markets in Africa. Welcome, Ash. Then I have Caitlin Whale, the founder and CEO of Kinjani, launched this week, I believe, so huge congratulations there. This is a new vehicle for backing African climate talent. And originally an engineer from South Africa, Caitlin has spent the last decade in London in sustainable engineering, then a deep tech venture investor, and more recently in a dedicated carbon removal fund, Counteract. Welcome, Caitlin. And then we have Claire Van Enck, who's the founder and CEO of Farm to Feed, that tackles food loss and waste, enormously important issue, by rescuing and creating a market for imperfect surplus produce at risk of being lost or wasted. They're pioneering the design of food loss credits. Amazing. Welcome.
Thank you.
And last but not least, we have Nick Hughes, founder and managing director at 4R Digital, that works with clients and partners to incubate new digital business models. These include leading the Vodafone team to create M-Pesa, amazing, and co-founding Nkopa, an award-winning digital company bringing clean energy and financial services to millions of people in East Africa. Fantastic to have you with us, Nick. Welcome. So before we kick off this topic, I want to start with a couple of reflections from the Africa Climate Summit in all the different engagements that I've had with those working in the carbon market space. And I've been really moved, invigorated, excited by the number of different organizations and institutions backing the concept of carbon markets. And this really stretches across from communities. Kanyike Sena, who leads a multitude of communities across the whole continent, has been speaking on this topic. Citibank convened bankers from across the continent. We've had many, many private sector and, of course, project developers talking on the topic. And I think we can all recognize there's been media, a lot of media on this topic over the last decade, and especially around the summit. We have to state very clearly, carbon markets are not perfect. And I think it is not just important, but it is critical that the debate continues, that the issues are raised and discussed in relation to integrity and equity. So carbon markets will fail if we do not hold them to a high bar. It is our duty to the planet. It is our duty to communities in the global south. And there is an enormous amount at stake if we get this wrong. It's an estimated potential influx of $50 billion of capital at the maximum technical potential of carbon markets. It's a lot of money that could be channeled from the global north to the global south. Carbon markets are also one of the only financial mechanisms that are truly democratic. During the climate summit, there was over $650 million worth of capital announced on stage under the Africa Carbon Markets Initiative. Most people, when they think of those numbers, will think of that money going to the corporate and private sectors. But the fact is, with carbon markets, there's a much bigger proportion of that kind of capital that is distributed to communities. There is a massive potential impact in terms of co-benefits. And there is no other mechanism like it that can have that level of impact deeply through an economy. And despite all the criticism of carbon markets, there are very positive projections to 2030. But we need everybody at the table. We need private sector, we need investors, we need communities, and we need everybody doing their utmost to address the issues that have been raised. And we are in a movement where the core carbon principles are being released by ICVCM. VCMI have developed some buyer principles, and Africa Carbon Markets Initiative, who we are supporting, are doing an awful lot of work to raise the bar in terms of integrity across all actors in the supply chain. So that brings me to introduce myself. I am Chania Frost with McKinsey & Company, and I've spent the majority of the last year supporting the African Carbon Markets Initiative, which is set to, well, which has an ambition of scaling carbon markets in Africa by 20-fold by 2030. So my first question to the panelists is, why Africa? What makes Africa a good place for scaling carbon markets? Duncan, I would love to hear your reflection.
Thank you so much, Chania, and good afternoon to you all. I would say Africa is great because, for one, we have a lot of carbon sinks here. We have natural resources that we can use to essentially remove CO2 permanently. I come from the engineered side of carbon dioxide removal. We design and build direct air capture technology. And for us, really, Africa is the best place for this because we have really high penetration of renewable energy, and we have really good storage locations for CO2. So these solutions can scale quite effectively. The other thing worth stating is that Africa has been left behind economically as other areas have industrialized. And being able to scale these solutions locally using robust carbon markets it presents an opportunity for Africa to actually develop and industrialize highly decoupled from emissions. And we had James talk very succinctly about it this morning. And so there is a climate justice element to it that though we have not contributed to climate change, we have these solutions here and we are solving climate change. But at the same time, it's an opportunity for us to develop our economies and build people into prosperous lives.
Couldn't agree more. The justice point is such an important one, and one that we must all uphold in terms of the equity and the distribution of revenues, no matter, well, depending on the type of project people are involved with. Now, Nick, Ash, and Caitlin, you bring different perspectives to this space. So Nick with an eye for tech innovation, and Ash with a bigger picture of various stakeholders involved, and Caitlin from your startup investments, what are some noteworthy innovations and activities that are pushing the frontier in your perspectives? Love to start with you, Caitlin.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And I think I would just change that 500 billion opportunity to a 1.2 trillion opportunity that nature-based and engineered solutions pose around the globe. And we were just at a workshop this morning, which is changing the narrative as opposed to just solving the climate crisis. It's like there is this global movement to buy invisible air. And Africa is so well placed to deliver on that because of how the tectonic plates have come together. There's lava close to the ground, which gives geothermal energy. There's basalt rock, which is ultramafic, which sucks up the carbon dioxide permanently. And there's a huge talent pool on continent that's growing that can help build the solutions that create this. And an example of one of the companies that I led an investment into from the fund that I was at before this was into Sela Mineral Storage. They are part of the solution. So Duncan would do the first half of taking really low concentration carbon dioxide from their air and making it really high concentration, 100% CO2. You then need to put that CO2 somewhere. So this company is dissolving it in water, injecting it deep underground into the basalt rock where it mineralizes and stays forever. And you've got companies like Frontier, which is a whole host of different companies coming together, Spotify and a whole bunch of others, that are paying something north of $500 per ton to get these locked away permanently. And that's just the tip of the iceberg of opportunities that are here on continent.
$500 per ton for mineral storage, massive opportunity. Huge investment, of course, required up front, and technology, I think, still very much being developed, but incredible that we have Sela here in Kenya pioneering that. Fantastic. Nick, over to you.
Yeah, thanks. I think we should all be excited about the abatement and removal technologies, but let's not forget, and linking back to your first question, there are millions and millions, hundreds of millions of people in Africa that should be benefiting from the carbon markets just for the small scale activity that they can do by switching fuels, looking at smallholder farmers, looking at locking up carbon in biomass. Let's not, we should be excited about the abate and the removals technology, don't get me wrong, but we can quickly go to other solutions on the ground where we can bring carbon finance down to people doing work on the ground to either switch to a clean fuel or remove carbon in small numbers. And if we're not thinking about Africa, by 2050, 1 in 4 adults on the planet will be on this continent. And as investors, if we're not thinking about that as an investment opportunity, then we're missing something here. There's a huge opportunity. I think we can use digital technology. You know, if you go back 15 years when we launched, 16 years now, we launched M-Pesa. We did it because there was a gap. People couldn't get access to financial services. Today, there's another massive gap. People cannot access carbon market finance. The small to medium-sized projects can't get there, and yet there's no excuse for it. We have digital money, we have the ability to monitor everything down to 30-centimeter size blocks of land using satellite imagery. We have machine-to-machine technology. We can watch a cook stove being turned on and off remotely using digital technology. Why? And we know how to move money around. I could pay someone 30 shillings for a week's worth of electric usage on their cook stove, and we know how to make all of that work. We've got to jump into that and forget these models. I've been working in the carbon markets for a decade before I got into digital finance. The carbon, let's be honest, they're not working. I'm going to be very blunt in the interest of time. If you're a small or medium-sized project, you just won't bother getting into the carbon markets. Let's redesign, thank you very much. Let's get some new microphones and think about how we can, shall I start again? Look, I think we can redesign the carbon markets, and we can make it work for the smallholder farmers, we can make it work for households, we can cover their switching costs to clean energy, and we have all of that technology available today to do it. And we don't need to invent mobile money, we don't need to invent IoT. We know how to move dollars across international borders. That's what we should be doing, and we should be doing it with data backed by independent audits. The core carbon principles are key. There's no excuse to not change the way the markets are working, I think.
Yeah, 100%. Love the point on data. And your point on opportunity reminds me of what John Kerry said on stage on Monday, which is this is the biggest opportunity that the world is facing since the Industrial Revolution, which I think is really poignant. I want to turn to you, Claire. You're pioneering solutions to sell carbon offsets. Can you tell us how that works?
Yeah, I can tell you how we do it, or how we plan to do it. So we rescue food that would otherwise be lost. This food is a methane creator. And by keeping that food in the human food chain, we avoid these CO2 emissions. So we measure that impact and are now on our way to certification. We are just finalizing our feasibility study. So in a nutshell, that's how it works. So we are really doing food avoidance credits. So it's avoidance, and it's really pioneering. They just released the methodology last month, the Vera methodology.
Super inspiring. And in terms of your timeline, when do you think that will be piloted and ready to go?
Yeah, so it does take a lot of time, and Ash, I was actually the first person to tell me how long this takes and how many iterations you have to go through and how many projects and how much capital you need. So it's not accessible unless you have funding or you have fundraised. So it's not accessible to a lot of people. So we started in January, finished the pre-feasibility study. Now we're starting the feasibility study until the end of December, and then we're able to start the actual project starting in January. That will take another year until you have certified. So it is a long-term coming. It is an investment. And there has to be ways to do that much easier. I don't understand why we have to go through so much time.
Yeah, exactly. No, I was just reinforcing that point. It's crazy that we took M-COPA through the gold standard. It took us 2 years, cost us I'd say hundreds of thousands of dollars. You barely wash your face by the time you come through that process. That's not the way to run the carbon markets. And it's crazy that you're having to do that. If you're monitoring that methane capture with using digital technology that can be independently verified, what's to stop you putting those credits together much more quickly than going through the traditional standards where these guys are taking fees and time out of the process? And so.
I think it's such an important point. People often don't recognize how expensive, how time-consuming, how much capacity capability is required even just to navigate the system of going through the verification, validation, and there's a massive bottleneck in terms of access to the verifying bodies and their auditors as well. And that can be a huge time constraint and constraint to cash flow because you can't actually issue your credits when you need them. So, yeah.
And one thing to add, like for us, you need expertise. You need to really understand how the market works. You need to understand how the verification. You need a person who really understands that. So it's time, it's money, and it's getting that expertise in-house. which is also a major barrier for a lot of companies.
100%. Now we've talked a bit about frustrations. I'd love to hear from you, Duncan. Also, what have been the main things that have been frustrating or hindering on your journey?
So our market is just emerging for engineered removals. We are working with Puro as our validator, and we're using their methodology for quantification of CO2 removed. Ours has somewhat been easier. I think Puro has seen the frustrations of carbon markets 1.0 and has been working to make it easier, especially for startups. In our sector, it's a sector of startups who don't have those hundreds of thousands of dollars or that expertise to really go through that entire certification process. They are expensive, however. The good thing is that they hold our hands basically right from the very beginning, so we don't pay any upfront costs, and they help us throughout the entire process. So we're very grateful to the folks at Puro for that. And I empathize, and maybe if I can just steal, I wonder if that whether you think, maybe Nick or Ash, whether you think that's the reason mainly why a lot of the value is not going to the local communities. Do you think that a lot of the value created from the sale of carbon credits is lost within the certification process with all these fees and middlemen? I don't know, what do you guys think? Sorry.
Yeah, definitely. I think one of the big problems with the carbon value chain is that it is so intermediated, and you have kind of incentives all along the value chain that are incentivized towards scale, not necessarily quality. And you have developers and brokers who often operate on revenue share models, and so they're incentivized to try to take their kind of slice of the pie. And so what happens is that $1 of carbon that ultimately gets sold in terms of revenue, often by the time it gets back to the project, it might be 30 cents. And so one of the things that I think is a really big opportunity for innovation and to try to clean up this industry is to try to create models where kind of supply and demand can be more directly connected, to have less intermediaries who are taking a piece of the pie, and ultimately to have more value go back into the project, go back into the community, and to achieve the outcomes. I think a lot of this as well is resulting in many buyers trying to cut out middlemen as well. So you're seeing some large corporates and buyers now trying to develop their own projects because they're basically saying we can't trust all of these people in the middle with our money to do this efficiently, and we kind of want to go direct to market. So absolutely it's a big problem. And also to Claire's earlier point, it costs a ton of money to bring these projects to market. You need a few $100,000. And part of the big value add of developers is that they take care of everything for you. So not only are they providing expertise, they're providing finance, and they say, in exchange for us bringing your project to market and providing the expertise that you need, we'll provide the funding so that you don't pay anything and your project gets to market. But what a lot of projects don't realize is they're actually not getting a very good deal, because on the back end, they're going to pay 30 or 40% of their revenue to this developer. And so what we really need is access to capital for these projects.
Yeah, just to build on that. So we're, with some funding from the UK government, FSD Africa here, and the Shell Foundation, we're building a pure digital platform that has third-party verification, but it's all about the data. And we must remember the carbon market's been around a long time. I mean, they failed a couple of times as well. But the science of how to calculate a carbon credit is the science. And if we can digitalize that, I think we can cut out a lot of these costs in the middle. And this platform we're building is called the Carbon Value Exchange, or CAVEX, and it's intended to do just that. Let's get 90% of the sale price back to the projects on the ground. But there's no reason why we shouldn't be doing that sort of proportion of revenue back on the ground and into the communities doing the work. And unfortunately, we're living with a legacy system. It's a bit like, there is a parallel to the financial access debate in, when turn of the century and the Millennium Development Goals, where we're thinking, how on earth do we get into financial inclusion for everybody? Things like M-Pesa work because you have to put aside the old models and use digital technology to drive a new one out. And it does get uncomfortable. So yeah, of course the standards bodies are going to say, look, that's not the way we do it this way, and we've been doing it this way for 20 years. But if we keep that mindset, we will never change in time. We have to use the digital technology we've got and try and really think about how do we get high impact, high quality money going down to those organizations and people on the ground doing the work.
Couldn't agree more. Caitlin.
Thanks. I think, Nick, we absolutely need the digital technology. We also need the hardware. And the example I used was direct air capture and underground sequestration. That's an example. it's a way that we can also access markets more quickly. So an example, there is a guy in Kisumu who is taking the water hyacinth out of Lake Victoria, fermenting it, and using it for biofuel. Not only can that biofuel, you can get carbon credits from that, you can also get a pure stream of carbon dioxide from the fermentation process that's coming off it. And where I'm been sitting is all the innovations there's someone in Oxford with an idea about how this could happen and raising so much money off it, but actually it's already happening on the ground here. So it's how do we get the innovators and operators who are building the hardware to access the capital that's available for these sometimes IP-rich, hardware-intensive innovations. So that's just another example where bringing different types of capital together.
Yeah, I want to take us back a little as well to the point of the amount that brokers are needing to take, that brokers take. I think there's a major problem with opacity. Buyers across the world have a real problem understanding what projects are out there, how to get directly to the project developers. They essentially have no other choice than to go through brokers, and so brokers have a sort of monopolized situation where they can charge what they like. With Africa Carbon Markets Initiative, one thing that we are supporting them to do is develop a carbon credit showcase. So this is essentially a catalog of all the different, well, not all, whoever applied, but a showcase of projects, over 90 projects across the continent, and spread across 20 countries, 65 project developers, and includes a push for transparency on co-benefits, on revenue sharing, on these metrics that should drive a higher price, but also just bring to market what is not currently available to the buyers. I think it'll be really important. It's getting noisy. I think, should we open it up to questions from the audience? And then we can close. Why don't we take 10 minutes of questions? Do we have any questions from the audience?
Questions? We have questions out there. Yep, one. Someone else? I know where to come position myself.
Hi everyone. I wanted to ask, what's your opinion on having corresponding adjustments attached to voluntary credits?
Just repeat that for me.
Oh, sorry. What's your opinion, for anyone on the panel, of having corresponding adjustments attached to voluntary credits?
Anyone want to take that?
I think this is an area that's evolving at the moment. I think the whole market is going to push towards Article 6, and eventually I think all buyers are going to look for authorized units, irrespective of whether they're buying on the VCM or in compliance markets. And so I think that at the moment it's really unclear the situations in which a corresponding adjustment needs to be attached. And there is a lack of transparency across the different mechanisms. So for example, like Corsia versus a VCM transaction versus an Article 6 bilateral transaction. There is really a lack of clarity under which circumstances should a corresponding adjustment be attached. And so this is all being built in real time, and there's not a lot of transparency around it right now. I think what's really important is that we can build towards a shared understanding of this, because many buyers are being spooked by this, and there's a real risk of double counting if it's not done properly. And so I guess it's a bit of a wishy-washy answer in which I don't have a hard view on yes or no corresponding adjustments. What I think we need is a shared understanding of the circumstances under which we need to have them and what that looks like, so that the market can participate and not be concerned about, double counting or greenwashing.
Maybe just a short addition to that. I think it's going to be really important to help countries think through what kind of credits they want to forfeit and sell to other countries and not have them count towards their own NDCs. If all the cheapest credits, cheapest projects are sold to the global north, African countries won't be able to meet their own NDCs without major investment in the much more expensive projects. So countries like India have taken the stance of saying the only projects we will sell via corresponding adjustments are like green hydrogen and just the super expensive types of projects that they currently don't have capital for. So there's something to be said for helping countries protect their own carbon assets as well in their own NDC journeys. Another question?
Yes, so my first question is, what are some of the solutions off the top of your head to avoid potential greenwashing claims, to developing carbon offset projects, given that some of the traditional standard bodies have been implicated in these scandals?
Great question. Anyone want to take it?
Okay, so for number two, in terms of MRV requirements within the carbon markets, how can data from small-scale projects be leveraged towards national reporting?
I'm happy to take the first one. I think as these markets are evolving and standards are coming together, if you just focus on the data and really getting high quality, rigorous data from the get-go, the markets will sort themselves out. So making sure even in the smallhold agriculture application, when you're measuring the soil before you're restoring it, make it deep enough that you get the whole root length, get the bulk density as well as the dry carbon, get all the different factors to get the baseline so that by the time the markets have caught up with what's happening, you've got the data to back how you've improved it over time. Do you want to add to it?
Yeah, I'll add to it on the data from smaller projects, but that's perfectly possible now. We have a few things have changed. The cost of accessing good quality networks, like the GSM network, 10 years ago, it would have been quite hard and very expensive. That's not the case anymore. You can get GSM modems at $2. You have to put that technology into the kit if you're monitoring kit, or you have to use satellite imagery down to high resolution to pull it back if you're looking at land use carbon sources. But it's perfectly possible. I think we've sort of got ourselves stuck thinking that that's hard and expensive. It's really not. And I think you can do the aggregation on the cloud. So you pull the data in according to protocols, things get kicked out unless you're getting a date stamp, a time stamp, a location stamp. You can collect the data you need remotely at a fair cost. That can then all be aggregated on the cloud. There you can run your data assessment, looking for anomalies, doing the cleanup, making sure that it's verifiable, and then out of that you can aggregate up to the carbon credits. So I think we're worrying too much about the technology behind that because we know how to do that, and we have the networks and the infrastructure to do it today.
Nicely said. Any more questions?
Sorry, let me just add one thing.
Please
on
add
that
to it,
first
Duncan.
question.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing is also third parties. I think we've spoken to a lot of buyers, and buyers generally have different priorities. There are buyers who care about biodiversity, there are buyers who care about permanence, there are buyers who care about additionality, and they have different priorities. So there are folks who are really innovating in ways of really quantifying the metrics of your project on these different aspects, and you can have really a great credit score. You can imagine it like a credit score, and that's what we're doing also for our own project, which can also help a buyer to make an informed decision based on the priorities that they have. And they'll assess you, they'll send verifiers to really quantify everything that you're doing and the claims that you're making, and that helps build trust with them.
One other thing, I think we also, in this conversation about greenwashing, it's really important that the carbon markets can achieve their objective. And one big lever there is around price, which I'll put to one side. But I also think that some of these witch hunts and some of the Guardian articles, for example, in which many corporates that are participating in the VCM get lambasted, is really, really unhelpful. We need to remember that the market is voluntary. Corporates are choosing to participate. They don't have to. And without them, without buyers, there is no market. And I speak to so many corporates who are basically saying, we're not participating right now because we're too scared that we're going to do the wrong thing. That reputational risk is so massive that corporates would rather not participate than risk getting hung out to dry. And so I also think that we need to start cutting folks a little bit of slack who are actually putting capital into this sector, because without them, it's just not going to exist.
I think that's a really good point, right? We need to move this, and I agree with you. Not participating at all is also a huge risk.
Just hearing this morning that someone's mic's on. The major oil and gas companies are really being pulled over the coals, of course, because of their historical emissions. Many of them are obviously moving their entire strategies towards renewables and have set net zero targets. Okay, yes, we have the historical emissions, but if you look at the current footprints, in terms of what differentiates them from, say, major tech giants, which have huge footprints, the oil and gas companies are still the ones that when they engage, when they've set their SBTI targets, when they've set their net zero targets, they engage in carbon credit offsets, they're developing their renewable energy portfolios, they are still being hammered for buying carbon credits. And those companies, if they pull out of the market altogether, that is a huge buyer loss. And I'll speak to any project developer here in terms of the risk that that poses over the next decade. So I think the narrative has to be very careful around who is buying. Sure, if they're still doing significant exploration and development and then buying credits, that's a totally different story. But if they're actually on a pathway to net zero and this is part of their pathway, we need to actually recognize that.
Yeah, just to add to that point is, I think Otavia has a very different, we talked about this before, has a very cool model because your product is carbon. But if you don't have that kind of product, personally, you have to be really thinking about how reliant your business model should be on carbon credits. Thinking about the development of everything and how it's going.
Can I just add on? I guess oil and gas is always posed to be this really bad beast in the room, but actually we're the ones that's still demanding the carbon from underground that they're extracting. So it's how do we leverage the infrastructure that they've used to pull the carbon out of the ground, to use it and then put it back in the ground. And there are some really thoughtful investors, like I'm going to call out Shell Ventures and Equinor, who have whole teams thinking about which innovations they can invest into so that when it gets to the time that the innovations are large enough that they can scale, they can use their existing distribution channels to infiltrate everywhere around the world. So I think it's helpful to have these giants on the journey as well, but also doing it in a way that's transparent and authentic, absolutely.
I think we do one more question. We have 4 minutes before half the hour. Anyone else? No? This is a very good panel. Like, I really enjoy it. I was like taking notes and things.
Thank you. I think you guys partially answered my question, but maybe I will ask it again explicitly. What do you think are the current and what will be the future positive and negative drivers creating demand, especially for voluntary carbon credits?
Let me take a stab and then I'll pass around, but just very briefly, one of the major ones will be the approaching deadlines for people's net zero targets. So as we reach 2030 and then again in 2040, and companies approach their deadlines, they will have residual emissions that they will want to offset. So the projections towards those time horizons is that there will be a massive demand spike so that people can actually meet their targets. But I'll pass on to others.
Yeah, just to add, I think there's a really interesting dynamic. We talk about this on the CAVEX team a lot. If you're regulated into buying credits, and we've heard a lot this week through the Nairobi Declaration around the need for global tax, driving hard at those compliance markets, most finance directors around the world are going to go, okay, I've got to do this. Find me the lowest cost, potentially lowest quality credit anywhere. Which is that really what we want? Whereas in the beauty of the voluntary markets is you've got companies doing it because they know that's the right thing for them to do because their consumers want it and there's a generation of employees that want it. So they're going to go out and they're going to look for credits as part of a story. I think it has to be part of a journey. But will they pay a premium for a high impact carbon credit? So if my $12 goes to a smallholder farmer, the impact of that is massive compared to my $2 going to a North American timber credit. So I think there's a really interesting dynamic between impact and cost, and I think we've got to get the markets working properly, and we'll see how that plays out. But my gut feel is we will see higher prices for high impact credits. But I'd love to debate it.
No, just I just had one point on price. I just think one of the biggest things that undermine the market at the moment is cheap credits. If I started a company selling $15 Rolexes, you would say, cool, your Rolexes are obviously fake and your company is probably unethical. Like, the whole idea that people can buy carbon credits for $5 a ton is a joke. You cannot do all of the things that are required in order to manage a rigorous, real carbon project for $5. I don't care what it is. Even if it's a forestry project, it takes a ton of effort to be able to plant trees, to look after them, to put in place the community infrastructure, the community engagement needed to make that project work over a 30 to 50-year horizon. And so we need to clear the market of cheap credits. We need a race to the top, not a race to the bottom. And I think we're starting to get there, but it's a huge area of innovation as well, of how do we actually develop the tools to be able to measure and properly report on these projects, to show what good looks like and to rid the market of the bad. And until then, I think the market will continue to be undermined.
Wow.
Can I? Yeah. To your question, what's going to drive it? I don't know. None of us do, and I definitely don't have a behavioral economics background. But I do have an engineering background, and I think the climate science shows us that in every scenario, if every company does everything that it can to hit net zero, we still have to be removing 5 to 10 billion tons of carbon per year. And the capacity that we have right now is 0.025% of that. So this industry, by the end of 2100, has to grow from almost a standing start to $1 trillion. It's bigger than the oil and gas industry in a shorter amount of time. So if you look at the numbers, people are going to get at it from that way. I think there's a lot of other drivers that will get there, but we'll have to get there eventually if we want to save the planet.
Can I even just ask before she continues, what about disasters, generally? You know, what country was it where there was the largest fire I've ever seen in a lifetime, and then it flooded the next day? Was that Brazil? Some place like that? I was watching it on TV in the morning. I think disasters are something, I'm not one of them, but I'm just thinking disasters are going to be a big push. We, as a country, Kenya as a country, we're deforesting faster than we ever have in our lifetimes. So I just think disasters are, I think we should think about as well.
Totally, and I think the fires that were happening and affecting the whole of New York made people really feel like everyone is going to be affected by this, whether you are in a mansion or in a not a mansion, it's going to affect everyone, and everyone's waking up to that. I think another really useful tool for making corporates wake up to it is through legal action. So there's a company called Client Earth, who, for instance, is taking Cargill to court for deforestation of the Amazon rainforest because of planting for soy feed. The more responsible corporates who are holding themselves to account for what their goals are, I think the better, and legal action is a really powerful tool for that.
Fantastic. I'm going to close by saying currently Africa is only meeting 1% of its total carbon credit potential, with anywhere between 500 billion and 1.3 trillion potential capital inflows into the continent to finance green development. So I want to thank our panelists. I think it's been a very interesting conversation, and thank the audience for listening and your excellent questions. Thank you.
Let's give them a hand, ladies and gentlemen. This was a really good panel. Thank you all for making the time to come on stage. We're going to take a short, not a break really, we're just going to jump into clean tech pitches. So we're going to call out all the clean tech founders who are going to pitch next to come somewhere around here, sit on the front stage, and then we're also going to be looking for our judges to put them on the couches at the front. But take the opportunity to say hello to someone, maybe say hi to someone on the panel that you want to talk to, and catch a drink at the bar inside. Cheers. All right, ladies and gentlemen, let's take our seats as we start on the next round. We're going to be doing, we've done breakout sessions. It was nice to have Duncan, Claire, Shania, Ash, Nick, and Caitlin on stage. Now we're going to be doing clean tech, so I'm looking for my clicker thingy, which is, I see your stuff is on stage. I'm looking forward to milling some food. Clicker is out here. Click, can anyone see the clicker anywhere? All right, there we go. So we did a couple parallel sessions. This was the other one.